Hey guys, welcome back to Relationships with Mareike. I have another exciting guest on the show, Janae Bueta. I'm so excited to have you here. So she is a communication and arts director at Doxadeo Brooklyn. And today we will be discussing the topic of thinking and listening environments. Janae, welcome.
Thank you so much, Marika. I'm so excited to be here, and I love the topic of listening and thinking. So, yeah, super excited.
Awesome. So tell me, how did you come across this topic?
So, it was a process. I actually I'm quite an extrovert, so you talk a lot, and then at some point in your life, someone will just show you a blind spot. A blind spot is something that you don't know you do, but someone should point it out. And a friend of mine actually said, she's like, do you realize that when you walk into a conversation, you sort of just start talking? And I was like, no, I didn't think I was that intrusive in my way of going about things. And she just pointed it out, and that's where my whole journey started, with figuring out how to be a better listener and creating a thinking environment for people. Because that example of just busting into a relation or conversation, actually it takes away from the conversation what that was happening there. You take someone out of their comfort zone or their train of thought, and yeah, that's where that journey started. Two of the references or materials that was quite helpful is the book Time to Think from Nancy Klein. And Vanessa von Edwards actually spoke at the GLS conference. That's the Global Leadership Summit. And she talks about body language and cues and questions. And that was so interesting to me. So that's where it all started.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Yeah, well, I must say, I'm also somewhat of an extrovert. And I also had an experience where someone pointed out to me that a lot of times, one of the stuff that I do when I'm in a conversation with someone is that I will be busy, like, I will listen with the intention of answering and not listening with the intention of actually hearing them out, like seeing their perspective. So you spoke previously while we were talking about a Bible verse. If you can maybe share on that.
Yeah, so the one I was referring to is John 13, where it says that Jesus spoke to his disciples and said the biggest commandment is actually to love one another as you love yourself. And if you love someone, you actually take time and you listen to them properly, or well, in a good relationship, that is. But so that basis of listening and thinking is actually very biblical. If you think back on where God walked in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, they had a conversation. They listened, they spoke, they replied. They weren't rushed. There was no technology around. And that's all of the things that happen in our lives that take away from good conversations and creating thinking environments for people to really just have the ability to think. We listen to answer, and we want to basically think for them, because we have this idea that we are a little bit better equipped, perhaps, or we have more information about the topic. So you just want to, life is such a rush, you maybe just want to give them the answer, but you don't allow them to think about it.
And I also sometimes think that it might be a thing of control. We as people, we struggle to let go of the control. And as soon as we hear someone who has a thought, they think about something, and then all of a sudden you think about something as well, and then you want to take that control and bring it into the conversation. And I think one of the stuff about actually actively listening is laying down that control and giving that other person the opportunity to share their thoughts, what's going on in their mind. And for us as active listeners in a good and healthy, mature relationship, we should be open to, for that moment, being like, okay, let me lay down my control. Let me actually listen to what this person that I love. So I love the thing that you say about love, because if you really love someone, you want to be purposeful in that relationship. You want to actually focus on what's going on in their heart. So I heard this thing of listening with the ear of your heart, and that was so
Oh,
beautiful.
very
Yeah,
beautiful.
listening with the ear of your heart, and that's like saying, you know what, I care about you, so I want to know what's on your heart. I want to know what you have to say. So, in this topic, we are going to be discussing some components
Yes.
as how to actively listen and think. So, what can be some key components that we can bring into that?
So the first one is, you said it, you listen with your heart. And when you listen with your heart, you actually pay attention to someone.
Mm.
So that's the first key component that you can think about is attention. Giving someone your complete focus at the moment, not being distracted by technology, your next appointment, your next conversation that you need to have, rushing to somewhere else. You actually look at a person, you look them in the eye, and you give them your full and 100% attention. Um, and that just creates an environment for a person to feel at ease. They feel cared for, they
Yeah.
feel important. So paying attention is definitely the first step in really listening well and giving them the space to think about how they're going to answer.
Mm. Yeah, I also think that an important thing to bring into a conversation like that. So, I have this rule that when I'm in a conversation, especially something that's serious, my friends come to me, they want to talk about something. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, I put it away, so that because I feel like in our society today, we are so focused on our phones. One of the stuff that really gets to me, like I'm a quality time type of person.
Okay.
So as soon as I'm busy trying to talk to someone and they have their phones out and they're on their phones looking at, yeah, no, I'm listening to you. In that moment, I don't feel loved. I don't feel that this person is actually listening to me and they're not paying attention to what I'm saying. So I definitely do agree with that. Making a point in putting away the electronics, making time to pay attention to that person.
Yeah. That's with I just think putting away a phone, then you end up having your phone on your wrist as a smartwatch, and so
Oh,
that's another thing that you
yes.
need to like figure out. And it
Do not
happens,
disturb.
do not disturb, or like take it off or put it
Mm,
aside, and that just makes someone feel like worthy of your
mm,
time and attention. And my love language is actually words of affirmation.
mm.
So if someone doesn't even pay attention to you, how can they affirm you if they
Yes.
don't know what's happening around them? That takes us to the next point, and that's incisive questions.
Okay.
And that's really getting to the heart of a question. Um, you allow a person the environment and the place to process what you just asked, and you do the same. So you listen to them with the same quality that you would want them to listen to
Oh,
you as well.
yes.
So that's the next thing, is incisive questions.
Wow, that's really good. I love that. It's that thing of do unto others what you. Yeah. So I think that that's really awesome to have a look at it that way. Like if I was in this situation, how would I want the person to be listening to me? Yeah.
That's actually one of the things how you want to listen to. But think about it. If you walk into a room and you think that you're actually confident about the topic that's being discussed, we tend to like not value ourselves as we value others sometimes,
Mm,
and you put yourself down.
mm,
You think that you're not knowledgeable enough about it. But if you walk in there thinking that you're the most clever person in the room, not being arrogant, but just like being clever, you're going to engage the world completely differently.
mm,
So that's one of those aspects. And then the next one is putting someone at ease. And
yeah.
that's so important. If that person feels that what they are saying is going to change the way you look to them or think about them, they become at ease.
Mm,
And you can tell them if you see they're nervous or something, you can actually ask, what was the best or worst thing of your day today? And it just takes away like emotions, puts them at ease, and they know that you're there focusing on them for that time, even if you have to put a time frame on it, because, like we said, life is quite rushed. So you could say, Marika, I want to listen to your story. Let's have a cup of coffee. I have 20 minutes. I really, really want to hear what your thoughts are on this topic. Then there's a time frame. You're at ease. You've got a cup of coffee. Life is just comfortable. And that just creates a whole environment where people can ask questions and think better.
And what would you say, like with this in ease aspect? Let's say you're in a situation where you are in conflict with someone. Like you start off a conversation and then all of a sudden this leads to conflict, but there's not necessarily a maturity on both ends. How would you say then to create an environment of ease?
So I have a rule that if the conflict gets too intense, take a walk.
Mm.
Even if it's just out the door and in the door, that moment of like opening a door and closing a door actually takes away that tension, and that brings ease into a room. So if you're not mature and you can't listen to the person from their stance, then take a break. Take a minute, because I have a good friend who says emotions don't have intellect.
Mm.
And that's quite interesting,
Mm.
because when you're that emotional in a conversation, then your thinking ability just goes out the window and you just react.
Mm.
And then you're not reacting with your heart, you're reacting from a completely different place, and that's not where we want to be.
Mm.
The Bible says you will, what your heart is full of will come out of your mouth.
Yes.
So if you are too angry, walk away,
Mm.
because what's in your heart at that moment might not be the thing that is needed in that conversation, or to just defuse the conflict.
Yeah, but sadly, sometimes we have both parties who are very immature, and I think in especially in those moments, um, then it's just like this head-on-head collision, and there's no way of getting out of it. There's no good communication. But I also kind of feel like the listeners, the people listening to this, so I have this saying, if you have the revelation, you have the responsibility.
That's so good.
Yeah. So that's like one of my like Holy Spirit thoughts and convictions, and I feel like people listening to this, learning about the active thinking and listening, now that we're giving them the revelation, they now have the responsibility to incorporate that into their relationships. So besides the ease, what other components are there?
So with responsibility, you said if you have the revelation, you have the responsibility. So in that, you need to appreciate the people around you. You need to appreciate that they've taken the time out to sit with you, to chat to you. And even in conflict, that's quite important. If you don't appreciate the other person's input, then I see trouble on the horizon. But if you appreciate and respect each other, then it's completely different, because then with respect becomes you get responsibility. With respect, you get you're at ease with respect, because I might not agree with what you're saying, but I respect you as a person. And that is something that comes with maturity, but it's also something that you can implement for yourself if you give yourself like 5 steps. Okay, walk away, breathe, count to 10, stay quiet for 5 seconds, or I'm gonna like give you a talking stick. You can talk now and I'll be quiet for that time. So there's actually ways that you can make someone feel appreciated and put them at ease as well. So that's important.
Yeah, and I also think like linked to this appreciation and appreciating the other person is also appreciating what God has created. So the amazing thing about us as human beings is that all of us are different. All of us think different. We have different personalities. Like nobody is the same or thinks the same that I do. Nobody. There might be a few same personality traits, but that same person with the same personality trait might not have like grown up in the same environment as me. So I think with the appreciation, we should also learn how to appreciate each other's quirks, each other's way of thinking, and not just force your ideas and the way you do stuff onto someone else. Just like really appreciating the uniqueness of that person.
That takes us to the next step, actually, and that's called diversity. And that's
Okay.
exactly what you just said. I think the Holy Spirit spoke to you about this. You preempted it. No, equality is so important because in diversity, because within diversity, we've got such a beautiful country with so many different people, languages, cultures.
Mm.
And if you really celebrate that diversity, it brings a whole nother level into listening. It's also quite interesting that I found is that culturally we have different ways of listening, and knowing who you're speaking to and having
Mm.
them understand you is always a good base point to start off with. That of understanding what happens. There's an example in Vanessa von Edwards' book about in the Japanese culture is looking someone in the eye is quite disrespectful.
Oh, wow.
But in our culture, if you don't look at someone,
Yes.
then you're not respecting them. So it's also interesting to find out about different cultures. If you're traveling,
Mm.
if you're in your work environment, who's going to come into the room, understanding the people around you, and really celebrating diversity in every aspect of life, but especially in listening and thinking. Because if we all thought the same, life would be pretty boring. So luckily, we think differently, and that just brings I think that brings a vibrancy to your life if you allow people with different thoughts to speak into your
Mm.
life, and if you really listen to
Yeah.
them.
And I also think that the thing of active listening has this thing of being open to learning from each other. Because if you allow yourself to actively listen to the diversity, actively listening to what that person is saying, through that you might actually learn something from them. Um like I said previously, letting go of that control, letting go of your own way of thinking, and almost a sense of pride, thinking that, you know what, I know everything. But when walking into a conversation, instead of having that thing of I already know everything, go in it like, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn anything. And I think, yeah, that is very important when speaking to people.
Definitely. People tend to focus on themselves a lot. And if
Mm.
you do, that's very short sighted, because if you look forward and towards other people, you can always learn from them. Jesus had 12 disciples that he had, and he learned from each one of them. They each brought something to their conversation, their thinking environment that led to a healthy friendship, that led to real relationships, not superficial ones, if
Mm.
you really listen to someone. One of the other points that you can think about in this is about feelings. If you walk into, we spoke about conflict a little bit earlier, but if you just think about having a bad day, and you just rush into a place and you've had a bad day and you're just like pouring it out on someone else, they don't really deserve that.
Mm.
And they're not going to think the same way. If you were in an office with your boss and he had a really, really bad meeting before and he comes in and he's quite aggressive, you take that on yourself
Mm.
and you stop thinking your normal way because you're not at ease, you're not feeling comfortable.
Mm.
So, one of the things we started doing in some of our meetings is starting the day off by going around the room and asking people, what was your highlight and your low light of the past day or the day of the meeting? And you just go around the room. Nobody interrupts each other, nobody makes a comment. And that just puts feelings like it's like water on a fire. Everything is just natural and quiet, and you can just relax. And then
Mm.
when you relax, people just start listening properly. They think in more creative ways. I'm in in creative environment, and we really need to get all of those feelings and stuffy things out of it, so that within our relationship with one another, within our relationship with the world around us, we are at ease and we put
Mm.
our feelings aside and we can really
Mm.
listen.
Yeah, and I also think that you there's a lot of people that struggle so much in actually expressing their feelings, and I think a lot of situations which leads to conflict is not opening up to what you're feeling. Walking into the house, you had a bad day, but now you're taking it out on everybody. Instead of walking into the house, okay, you had your bad day, you tell your friends, your family, your wife, your husband, you know what? I had a bad day today. I'm not feeling that great at this moment. Just give me half an hour. Let me just go sort out my feelings in the next room. When I come back, we can talk about it. Actually, start speaking up, opening up to what you're feeling. I think is very important, which can eventually lead to good open communication, is actually just expressing how you're feeling. Or if someone says something in a conversation that you don't agree with or that's not making you feel great, speak up about it. Say, you know what, I'm feeling uncomfortable about this. I'm feeling emotional, sad, angry, whatever you're feeling. Be open and express that, because if I don't tell you what I'm feeling, and let's say something happened at work today, and I'm feeling all of these emotions because of that, you and we're in a house together and you had a great day, and now I like put all of my emotions and my feelings, expressing it onto you. Obviously you're going to think you did
Mm-hmm.
something wrong. So if there's no open communication, in it's not you, like from the start say, you know what, something bad happened at work today, this is why I'm feeling the way, it's not you, like I'll talk to you about it. Instead of just keeping quiet and biting everyone's heads off and nobody's really knowing, like understanding what's going on. But I also think that there's a different type of maturity then on the other person's side, so that when a person walks into the house and they have like these angry emotions or whatever, to not immediately take it onto yourself
Mm-hmm.
and be like, you know what, if I trace back the day, I wasn't with this person, I haven't seen this person in a week, whatever. um maybe this maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe this person is just going through something else. Let me just give them a moment to try and figure out what they are feeling, instead of immediately just like throwing that on top of yourself and saying like, oh, it must be me.
That's actually, if you think about it, that's grace.
Mm.
Having grace with the person that walks into the room, having grace with yourself that you are experiencing feelings. Because I think people suppress their feelings as well because they don't want people to have to take it on. Because we are unfortunately a generation that take things personally in a negative way. Like someone will say it and you'll just take it on the assumption that it
Mm.
was meant for you, and so if you create that grace environment for a person to just have grace with themselves, have grace with you, then that also opens up thoughts. I'm thinking about if you think about what Jesus does in our lives, he's actually so gracious in
Mm.
he's there when you want to talk. He understands when you have a bad day, that you're not like when you're bursting out and putting everything and that you're angry. He doesn't take it onto himself. He doesn't take offense because he is the ultimate. He's so mature in his way that he loves people. He is the ultimate gentleman, and that's something we can strive towards.
Mm.
Is listening. There's that. What would Jesus do? But how would Jesus listen? Actually, that would be
Mm.
quite an interesting thought because
Yes.
you can't have a conversation with someone if you're just bombarding in and chucking all your
Mm.
emotions on that person. But there's also a responsibility, like you said, within yourself to communicate. We are stuck behind phones, and I always say, text don't have feelings either.
Mm.
How often have you read a text message or a WhatsApp and you're just like, oh, I can't believe that person is saying that and they didn't use any emojis
Yes.
or whoever. Like, please, people, use emojis. No, I'm just kidding. My friends that's younger than me, they actually came to me like, Jay, please use some emojis because we don't know what you're saying. And that's generational actually.
Yeah.
People are used to typing, and you can read it whichever way you feel. It's the way you're feeling that same day. So it's also actually asking questions like you said. Please, I don't understand this. Can you clarify it? Is this what you meant? Because I'm reading that into it.
Mm.
And that communication is quite crucial for healthy relationships. And especially, we're talking about communication, listening, thinking. Your phone has ears.
Mm.
WhatsApp needs to be interpreted in the same way. Are you giving a person a place to voice their concerns? Are you giving them, are they comfortable telling you what they're feeling without you reacting in some way? Because you can't take back those words. Yes,
Mm.
there's the delete for everyone, but that's quite like, I think it's a bad trait because it takes away that responsibility of how you're going to reply to things. So we just need to like really care for one another in that way. It's just be comfortable and allowing people to just be themselves as well and understanding differences.
Yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree, especially with the emojis. I'm aware, and I also think that our generation, we're big overthinkers. We overthink every single thing, and I also think that we're a, not like a scared generation, but scared of asking questions, scared of being open to like, hey, like, am I reading into this wrong? Am I doing it right? Because I think we're scared of the rejection
Hmm.
behind it.
It's that same. I think it's in Timothy where it says, "Don't young men don't be or you shouldn't think that you know less just because you're young." And that's something where I want to encourage people to really like step up and say, I have a voice. I have questions. I have an opinion and I can bring that to the table.
Mm.
And you don't need to be afraid of voicing your opinion and your thoughts and asking someone to listen to you, saying, I respect your point of view. Do you mind listening to me for a
Mm.
moment? That's good communication skills. It shows you when you ever from if you're 18-year-old and you starting a new job, you can ask for clarification.
Mm.
You can ask someone to please explain it further to you or say, I really feel I have a valuable point to raise. Can I please raise it at some point during the meeting? And reminding someone because they might just forget. Um, but so that's some of the things that's so crucial is that people understand that their voice has meaning.
Mm.
Their voice should be listened to, but the way you ask questions and the way you go about things are that's quite important. And it comes back to the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your
Mm.
questions. I don't know if you've ever
Yes.
heard that
Yes.
said, but
So
that
good.
is so true. When I really understood, when I had the revelation about that, it changed a lot of things to me because I could actually ask better questions and understand if I asked really silly, superficial questions, you're not going to get proper
Mm.
answers. So, spending time about thinking what you're going to ask, how you're going to communicate, that just improves the quality of
Yeah.
your life in general.
Like, for instance, don't ask someone just like, "How was your day?" Because that's such a vague question. Like, your day, it was a whole like 10-hour, 12-hour day. But asking better questions like, "What was the high of your day? What was the low?" Um, what's that? The three questions that John usually asks his daughter.
So John is my boss at work, and he always asks like, "What was your high, your low, and your
The good, the bad,
but
and
the
the
ugly?"
ugly.
Yes, that's
Yes.
it. So three open-ended questions, or not really open, three levels of questions that I can tell you guys about that just helped me so much. Is the first one being it's the quick and easy, starting small type of questions. So you walk into a room, you would say, "Do you know anybody in this room, or do you know the host?" Or you can go, if you're a little bit bolder, you can say, so, who's your celebrity crush? Because we all have one,
Mm.
let's face it. That's a very easy question. You can giggle about it, you can laugh about it. And then you've got your icebreaker type of questions. That's going a little deeper and learning about that person more. So, it would be like, perhaps, Marika, if you had a superpower, what would that be? Because whatever you answered is going to reveal a little bit about yourself, and you
Mm.
can go deeper into that. And then the third one would be a deeper question, um, about perhaps what is your love language? Um, what is your favorite book of all time? How did that book emotionally affect you?
Mm.
And you need to like know a person a little better. From question one, if you're starting small and you're seeing that person is completely disengaged because they're super uncomfortable, you can just hover in the starting small questions. And they won't feel like they need to answer something. Maybe you're talking to an introvert. We don't know how it feels, you and me, because we're like super extroverted, but like considering them as well. So
Yes.
you can hover in that questions as, do you have any of those questions that you often ask people?
Yeah, so I actually do have three three questions. So I learned this communication technique, especially trying to resolve conflict. And I actually do practice it with my family and my friends. So there's a few rules behind it. So the first rule is that there's a person A and there's a person B. When person A speaks, person B may not say a word until person A at the end says thank you. Then it means person A is finished speaking. Until that point, you are not allowed to speak. So we usually then start off with a question, um, what works for you in this relationship? Or what works for you um, with this job, or whatever the thing is that you're busy trying to resolve or solve out. That's what you ask, like what works for you. Then person A speaks whatever they want to speak. Person B, even if, especially with conflict, even if person A says something that they don't agree with, they may not speak. At the end, say thank you. Then person A asks person B, what works for you? Then the same thing happens. Second question is, what does not work for you? And then that also gives the opportunity for that person to openly express exactly everything that does not work. Because what I've noticed sometimes in conflict, we talk about a lot of stuff that's not working, stuff, and then um, after this exercise, you actually realize what's the important key stuff. So that leads us to the third question: is what 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 are you carrying? Like if you think about a bag, something maybe that's heavy, what are you carrying? Carrying might be something good. I'm carrying the excitement that it's my friend's wedding, or I'm carrying the stress that I have an upcoming exam, or it could be something very specific. I'm carrying the fact that um, for weeks now, I've been asking you to do this one thing and you still haven't done it. And then usually in the conflict scenario, most of the deeper stuff comes out in the third and final question. So those are sometimes, yeah, stuff that really works for me. But yeah, like also kind of to end off, to pull this thing back to the center, like, is there anything else, something important that you feel you want to add to this?
I just, I really feel what you just said about what are you carrying. It's cast your burdens onto me, Jesus
Mm,
said, because my yoke is light.
yes.
So it's asking, it helps if someone knows that you are willing to listen to them and willing to carry something with them.
Mm,
But real relationships tend to boil down to the fact of people caring for one another, valuing one another, giving them space, and treating each other as equals. So I think that's my takeaway from today is creating environments where people can really think will improve the questions you ask, will improve the way you listen if you think about if a person has the ability to think. So give them the attention, create a place, take away the feelings,
mm,
put them at ease, celebrate diversity, and encourage people.
mm,
Encourage them. Be their cheerleader. Life is so negative sometimes. Be the cheerleader that people need in certain environments, and they'll start thinking more creatively, more like constantly, and when you think constantly, you actually, you can have better relationships because you're present all the time. So that's just some of the takeaways that I would love people to go try out and give us some feedback on. If they like gave a person attention, did you get a better conversation started? Or if you set up a good place or took away the feelings and diffused it, are you having success with that? That would be quite interesting, getting some feedback.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to then delve deeper into this next time.